if you're watching live on the Blog to Watch Weekly live channel on YouTube. If you're not, why not? Ariel, you were just about to launch into a story about YouTube before I stopped you to say
YouTube? I have nothing but good stories about YouTube.
that it's a delightful place, full of
Yes,
I like YouTube.
full of intelligent commentary
the happiest
and
place on the internet, +1.
what is the happiest place on the internet other than YouTube? What's next in line?
Every
Love to
comment
watch.
section
The
ever.
thing is, any place on the internet can say it's the happiest place on the internet with no repercussions, so it's all great.
It's all great. It's all
Every
just full of,
opinion matters online. Don't you know that?
it's just full of loveliness. There's nothing to
Now,
see
whether or
here.
not Disney sends you a letter saying that they technically own the rights to the happiest place on the internet is a totally different issue, but we wouldn't be privy to Disney's full
I'd like to
copyright
see him try
ownership.
and prove it.
That it's the happiest class action suit against Disney. I've never been happy while watching certain shows. Some of them are downright dark now that they're dabbling into other genres.
They would have to somehow prove that. That would be very difficult for them.
That would
Well,
be a fun legal
I've
process.
seen a lot of tears and stressed out fathers at Disneyland, which is known as the happiest place on earth. So there might be some false
I
advertising
believe
there
they've been
too.
rebranded to the most expensive place on earth. Now that they're opening up Patek Philippe Land, where you can touch a cubitus.
Oh, that's the one with the
That's-
ears
you
and
get
the dog costume, right?
Something like
you normally
that.
get
yeah.
arrested for that, do you know? People's cubituses.
Not when it's
Eh.
a man in a plush suit.
All right, okay. It's all about what you wear. Yeah.
I saw a man's cubitus today. He showed it to me. I'm not joking.
Okay. And how was
He was
that
very proud of
experience?
it. Before he showed it to me, he had to go to the other room to prepare. And then he brought it in and he pulled it out. And
What color was
boy,
his?
it was blue.
Okay. Normally these sections don't go on the full podcast, but I might make an exception in this case. I keep on getting messages off of Kim going, "The really funny stuff's on the video." Well,
See, he was proud of it, but he did give me a warning. He said, Ariel, the shape takes a little bit of getting used to. Let it sink in for a while. Then it'll feel great. And I believed him.
Was it enlarged in person as the specs make it seem?
Well,
or they just
did
have
have
really
very
small
bold
hands.
dimensions. It was.
I hear it's
so
thin
big-
though.
No, it was so big he didn't even have it on.
It's just
He had to
carry-
hold it in his fist.
Okay, right.
This is a family
Again,
show,
these
isn't
are all
it?
facts.
It's welcome to our family edition. Or welcome to our after dark edition of a Blog to Watch Weekly. So, what we will do then is we will do our formal clap. And David, your video seems to have disappeared. Is that because
I
you
know,
need to get
because
your
I'm-
cubitus?
I've been much better than this, and to be honest, physically. So I'm relocating and moving around and stuff like that.
Alright,
and I don't
okay.
want to burden our audience with that.
Okay, that's fair enough. So, right, well, let's clap us in and we will start the full show. Somebody is, however, making a pinging noise. There we go. No, that's it. Okay, here we go. So, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Greetings and welcome to this week's A Blog to Watch Weekly. If you've never checked out the YouTube version of this show, which has extra at the beginning and extra at the end, then you've already missed out on the person that touched Ariel's cubitus. And
No, I think
all-
Ariel touched the man's cubitus. It's
Did
the other
he?
way around,
Oh,
Rick.
that's,
Yeah.
that's
Actually, the
legal.
story is I was offered to touch a man's cubitus.
That's legally much. That's got much more serious repercussions if you touched his rather than him touching yours. That's much more serious. I think you need to put all the cubitus talk to one
All the more
side.
worrying that it was blue too.
You see, David's not been joining in this conversation up till now, folks. He's been very quiet, and then he just
Yeah.
launches at the end, just with the.
Well, the
absolute
alternatives are
absolute-
green, so I don't know if that's much better.
That's two-tone.
two-tone.
See what that does. Anyway,
All
right.
right.
Let's move on. Let's move on and go from one brand that's got all sorts of problems. Maybe is it a problem? Well, we like to maybe think it's a problem. Anyway, to another brand who have switched from Formula One. This is from Watch Pro. From Formula One to yacht racing. So, folks, in the guess of where will Rolex put their money, who had more money into sailing really expensive sailboats as
This
where
is
Rolex was going to put their dollars?
this is the biggest no news ever in the history
Yeah.
of the watch industry. It's like
Yeah.
so vanilla, it's crazy.
I
Yeah.
I
mean,
mean,
Rolex has always been the kind of the luxury brand for the people, but it doesn't necessarily want to present itself that way. While you're far more likely to find one on some guy with bottle service at the club than, that man on his yacht. Formula One's become really, really mainstream in the US, and with, kind of just the party vibe that America's put on it, you can see Rolex trying to do something a little bit more elitist and luxurious. And if racing multi-million dollar cars wasn't expensive enough, now you're racing multi-million dollar boats, and it's a even more exclusive sport. I drive a car. I do not drive a boat. I own a car. I do not own a boat. So,
Uh-huh.
this kind of makes sense.
my take
Is
on
this?
this. Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Rick.
go on. No, go on.
My take on this is that this is less about the actual audience watching and who goes to the events themselves. Um, I think that a good point was made about the overall democratization of Formula One, which is actually a success story for Formula One because it means a lot more viewers. But similar to some of the complaints that were made about soccer, football, it goes the question is how many of those viewers are able to buy this product. So I think that Rolex made an interesting decision where arguably more of the people who are following boat racing are in a celebratory mood more often. And I think that's what Rolex is looking for. It wants to get its name in front of those people who are, again, more in a celebratory mood, uh, pursue these sports as a leisure, as opposed to maybe the mentality of like, I'm watching it because I'm betting or there's a drama related to it,
Uh-huh.
because that apparently lends itself less to buying watches. So the interesting thing here is Rolex feels very confident in their awareness, and in their mind, I think they're going sort of for a quality over quantity play. But the reality is that Rolex needs to make up elsewhere because it does benefit from having a large amount of eyeballs on it, and it will undeniably lose some through the loss of Formula One.
Do you think they will do anything watch specific in this sponsorship? They've always, well, to my knowledge, any of the events they sponsor, it's Rolex. It's not the Rolex Submariner or the Daytona that's on display. There's never a watch made specifically. There's not been a Formula One, I don't think.
They have the
Uh,
Yacht Master, Rick.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
they've
Well,
are this
yes.
is yeah, if anything, they're just assimilating their sponsorships to fit their catalog. You can't have a Yacht Master without being the master of the yacht. So now
Master
Rolex
of the
is
Yachts.
the master and timekeeper of
But
the yachts.
But genuinely, do you think they will ever mention the Yacht Master specifically in this sponsorship, or will it just be
Yeah, they'll have
Rolex?
ads for it where they'll
Uh-huh.
have a
Yeah.
boat in the background and stuff like that. Um, they've already had some of the people in the boating world that they've been involved with in the past wearing Rolexes and things like
Hmm.
that. Um, the funny thing is the flip flopness. LVMH was all about America's Cup and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Still are. Um, so
Well, Omega
obviously
is the
this
main title sponsor for the America's Cup now, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
So this is, I think, something where Rolex is trying to grow. They must know something we don't know. I think
hmm.
Ripley points out an interesting point that it's difficult for a lot of people to relate who don't have boating in their blood. Um, but I think the reality is for those of us that have gone to some of these boating things, it's undeniably romantic. It's undeniably fun. It's undeniably even more elitist than car racing. That's true. And I think we can all tell why brands like to be part of that world. They are fun events, again, as as non-democratic as they may be.
Hmm. Cool. Well, will anyone more likely to tune into yacht racing as a result of Rolex's sponsorship, or are we just trying to think maybe we might get invited to
Yeah,
something that involves
the
yacht
thing with
racing?
boat racing is, bless them, they're never going to be as good of a televised respect bear sport as car racing.
Uh-huh.
Car racing is like designed for television. It's probably even better to see it that way. Whereas even if you're like watching the boats, it's hard to appreciate it from the shore. You have to sort of like really be up close. Otherwise, it just looks oh look, it's a bunch of a bunch of people on these pretty boats pulling strings. Like you have to be really up and close to see the action. So I don't think that's going to have some of the same effect.
There we
And
go. So Ariel sums up yacht racing, pulling strings. Ripley.
yeah, I mean, I think if they mandated that everyone wear a defunct Yachtmaster 2 and have to use it in race, I think that might make for some very interesting television because that watches interface. It doesn't at all for regattas in terms of pulling out the crown and using its bezel to adjust the countdown. But I think it's Rolex arguably has no more of like a boat racing pedigree than it has more of a boat racing pedigree than it does with Formula One. The watch that it has for motor racing is the Daytona, which is famously linked to the 24 hours at Daytona, not Formula One. So it's there is a Yacht Master, and then they make an automotive watch that's really more for a totally different race and a different type of motorsport, still in a car, I guess. But I guess if you just look from like a branding perspective in the catalog, having a watch or having boat racing be a big pillar of your sport sponsorships with a collection known as the Yacht Master makes more sense than sponsoring Formula One with a watch known as the Daytona.
Hmm. I think I'm not sure
Hmm.
where I saw this figure. It's not in this article, but basically, I think Rolex have spent about a fifth of their budget on sponsoring the boat. So they've got another four-fifths to go. So do you
Boats are
think they'll turn up?
expensive.
Do we think they'll turn up at Le Mans or
Of what
Daytona
budget?
or?
What budget did they
Well,
spend?
I think they spent about 50 million a year on Formula One, did they not? Or was it the
But the
whole
budget is
contract?
however much they want it to be. They have infinite amounts of money. It's like, oh, the budget, it could be half or it could be a 20th. It
Well,
doesn't
okay,
make
what
any
I'm
difference to
basically
them.
saying is where they get they're not this is they're not stopping at this. They've not swapped Formula One for a fairly parochial, incredibly exclusive sport, and that's it. So are they going to turn up at Pomo and take on the JLC Reverso? Are they going to turn up at Le Mans, take on I don't know
No, an entirely
where do they
different
appear
thing. I
next?
think that they're going to start sponsoring all of our outfits so we don't have to dress like slobs for all the audience members that are so
Oh yeah,
concerned
yeah,
by that.
we've had
Oh, I
We'll
will
be
look
dressed
so
by
good in all that
Rolex.
green.
Yes, we'll wear the little pin. We'll all look like
uh-huh.
like Rolex salespeople. We won't
Yeah.
necessarily just talk about it, but that's their way of getting their presence all over Watch Media. I believe that's what they're
Yes.
going to do.
Yeah, so we've been told that we need to smarten up. You can see that obviously this morning we've listened to all of that criticism and turned up
I've
incredibly
prepared a
smart.
bow tie. I mean,
Excellent.
I'm
I
not
think
wearing it.
next week bow ties that
But we
spin
It's
or
have
that
them.
it's
flash,
it's
big
proof of
clown bow
ownership.
ties.
Yeah.
Proof of ownership. David does own a tux. There
Yes,
we go.
somewhere.
Right. Well, somewhere where if we were visiting, we probably would. Even Ariel, I'd be interested to see what Ariel wore because I think it was yourself, maybe been others that went to this. La Fabrique du Temps, inside the manufacturer. Ariel, was this you? Was this your photos?
Yes, I was there with Ed. So between the two of us, we took all the photographs in this.
So tell us what the atmosphere's like in a brand like Louis Vuitton. Uh, not like they're not widely known for their watches. It's not the first thing you think of. Do you
I mean,
get the
at this
feeling
point,
when
it's
you're
the
in the
first thing I think of when I hear Louis
okay,
Vuitton.
yeah, okay, but yeah, okay. I'll grant you it's the first thing we think of, but it's an incredible place. They've got incredible access to technology and to design and all the rest of it. But do they feel like when you're in there that they're the underdog, that they're the guy that's got this vast where like Louis Vuitton as a company, second or first largest company in the world, richest man in the world, or
It's
close to
interesting
it?
because,
How do they feel? What's the atmosphere like? Because
yeah,
they're not Rolex, they're not Patek, they're
so La Fabrique du Temps is the manufacturer where Louis Vuitton watches are made now. They were not started by LVMH; they were purchased by LVMH, um, and now they produce the watches for Louis Vuitton, Daniel Rothschild, Genta. There's a couple of pieces of content that we're publishing about it where we went in, we looked at the manufacturing floor where they decorate and assemble watches. And Rick, what you're talking about is the article where we went to their what they call the La Fabrique de Arts department. This is a large really a wing of the manufacturer that when we last visited, we've been there a few times, has been slowly built up as this kind of like workshop of traditional arts and crafts. But what's different about it is rather than just apply the art, they experiment and they play around and they figure out like what are some of the techniques we want to use in the next Louis Vuitton. And some of the high-end watches that Louis Vuitton have come out with really stack techniques. There's like a bunch of techniques in one watch, from engraving to gem setting to painting, to the different types of enameling that occur. And so they like to sort of show off their skill, and it really takes the right type of eye to notice these things. But they make some of the really most impressive art watches around. Many of the things that you'll see coming up, especially some of the one of a kind pocket watches, that Louis Vuitton is making, it just blows some of the other things out of the water. And to answer your question about how do they feel over there, it's kind of strange because they're in this weird middle point. You see, for the watch industry, because they're associated with LVMH and Louis Vuitton, they're seen as very sort of high end and elite and important. And oh wow, you're a big name. But on the other spectrum, as part of LVMH, you're the watch division of Louis Vuitton. You're like the smallest thing. Maybe like there's some chocolate department which is the same size, right? Like
Yeah.
you make so little money in the scheme of the larger Louis Vuitton brand that you're not marginalized, but no one's like, "Oh yeah, we need to see the report from the watch division." So they kind of left doing their own thing, which again is nice for them, but they recognize that it's not as though the shareholders are relying on them to like deliver. So they're kind of like the smallest guy in the room, but also the largest guy in the room at the same time. And that's kind of a nice blend, I would say.
Mm. And h- what do you feel they want to do with that ability? Like they've got all the money in the world. They're as close to, as David would say, Rolex, just infinite money if they wanted. Like if they wanted to become the biggest watch company in the world, they could just buy all the others, or they could just build by investing in product and staff and
You know
manufacturing.
what they're like?
But what do
It's
you
like
think they want to do with all of this?
it's like this sort of you know, caricature of this suburban man who has a garage full of tools that he may never use, but he wants to make sure that he has like all the right tools.
You've been
And
in my workshop.
that's kind of like what you have with LVMH. They want to own companies that can do everything. They want to be able to produce any project. They don't have to rely on any other person. And so they get like all the bits and components to be able to make amazing stuff. Maybe that's not what they do every day, but they're really motivated by like owning a company that can do this really, really well. And they don't necessarily feel the need to be the very best, but they don't want anyone to actually be able to be better than them if they really put their minds to it.
Mm.
So they like having the capability. And I keep saying this every time someone's curious about what their motivation is. They want to make desirable products. They want to like strike envy into you, like, oh wow, I wish I could make that, or I wish I could own that. That's really what their goal is. And so that's what they're trying to have their team do. They're really trying to make impressive stuff, not on sort of a superlative level, like, oh, our watches have to be the most accurate or the most complicated, but they want to be able to have all the artisans and engineers necessary to make stuff to satisfy their, their sort of like top clientele, including, top people at LVMH that, of course, consume their products.
Mm. Ripley, David, how close are you to every time somebody says Louis Vuitton, you think watches rather than handbags or champagne?
It's kind of split. I think just like their all over pattern that you see on the luggage and the purses and stuff is the first thing I think of, but that's not, necessarily confined to any one product category. That's just kind of like their vibe, the brown and tan all over print thing. But I think if you asked me 5, 10 years ago what my associations with Louis Vuitton and watches were, it'd be slim to none or, not watches wouldn't be on the top 5 list of things that they were known for producing. And I think that's slowly changing. And a big part of that is the fact that they're not just producing fashion watches. The whole Frederic Duchamp's thing is a whole other high end division versus what you typically associate with that big luxury company that also produces watches alongside everything else. What I think what comes out of Le Fabrique du Temps is right up there with some of the really high fanciful horology works, whether it's that Einstein piece, the automations, just the level of finishing. It really is a premium product. And so, um, I think that's kind of reinforcing in people's heads that Louis Vuitton does make a premium product, including a watch, not just, premium products and a decent watch, but not really anything of note from a quality or manufacturing standpoint. And I think for fashion brands, that's kind of the biggest uphill. They have plenty of desirability from a brand perspective, but it's then convincing the watch enthusiast that it's worthwhile and worth a premium price point. And I think they're actually being quite successful with it, but it's not something that happens overnight. And I think in another 10 years, I can only imagine it'll be the general public will have a much stronger association with them and watches.
And do you have any idea? Well, I have no idea where I'd go to buy a Louis Vuitton watch. I mean, I can't think of a Louis Vuitton boutique, but is that where you would go?
Like a
Or
black
store
sheep
in
store,
store
Not
probably.
somewhere?
just there, but yeah, that's where a lot of them are sold. Not every one of the Louis Vuitton stores has watches. Most of them have them to a degree.
Uh-huh.
Um, Louis
Like,
Vuitton has these shows where they just invite their private customers. They do multiple of them throughout the year in different
uh-huh.
cities. They'll take a house and they'll decorate it with all their stuff. One of the things I like to do with people at Louis Vuitton is we joke around about all the stuff they make. Their catalog has like thousands of items. Most of the people at Louis Vuitton don't know all the things that Louis Vuitton makes.
All
I
right,
remember
okay.
when I learned about their extensive furniture division, I was like, Louis Vuitton makes couches? Yeah, they make a lot of them.
Make
Mhm.
carpets, don't they? Is there not a
All
song
kinds of
about a
stuff.
carpet? I'm sure there's a rap song that mentions a Louis Vuitton carpet in it. I think
Maybe.
it's an
Maybe we can
Eminem
make
song,
one.
actually. Maybe we can
Now
make
that
one.
the audience is making music for us.
Yeah. Oh well. Now you see you've dropped it. Ah, well done. There's a good intro. We have a jingle. Hey, somebody's actually taken some time out of their life to write us a jingle. It's not quite ready because I need to rebalance the audio slightly for podcasting. So this is the teaser. The teasers. There's a jingle coming, and I am really sorry in advance, but the music track is a complete earworm. It's unbelievable. I listened to it like 3 times just before I got on a flight. I wasn't here last week. I was away. I was away having a meeting with my first genuine billionaire, like proper. This guy's got a lot of money. But the before I went into that meeting, I made the mistake of listening to the jingle, and all the way through the next 4.5 hours, all I could hear in my head was this blooming tune. So yes, you can
Do you
pray.
remember the number? Because I don't.
The phone number. Well, no, I can show it. So there we go. It's +44 7 3 8 6. See, the thing is, he's put actually there's an extra six in there, isn't there? There's too many sixes. Don't look
Why
at
are
the
there
number
so
in your
many
screen.
numbers?
Whatever you do, it's just all sixes. But yeah, the numbers oh 07 or +44 7 3 8 6 690 897. He's put a different cadence to it than I've been reading it out, and it works so much better. And there's no bagpipe music, which might be its only flaw. But anyway, if you want to reach out to the show, you can do it on YouTube. You can email. I almost gave my email address. You can email podcast at ablogtowatch.com if you want to send in your own jingle, or WhatsApp messages +44 7 3 8 6 690 897. What's next? Mike has written an article, and that article is this. Wait a minute. High end watch brands are running out of trinkets. I think the basic premise of this article is you've got all of these, moon phases, uh, chiming watches, perpetual calendars, all which used to be the exclusive high end. You'd be paying 40 grand or more for them, and now you can find them in Christopher Ward's and micro brands, and wee brands that haven't been, that are on AliExpress or whatever. GMT complications, which used to be 10, 15,000 pounds you'd be paying for them, you can now get for a few £100 at the most. So I think Mike's question is, what are big luxury watch brands where this used to be their exclusive territory going to do about it, if anything? Discuss. Ripley, Ariel, David. Or
In that
don't
order.
discuss. In that order.
I think
Um,
that's a good point overall from Mike. I think this is very true. In terms of manufacturing and design, it's been we've seen a massive democratization, and you don't have to produce tens of thousands of watches every year to amortize the costs. And we've seen brands like Venezia Nicole, like I saw on there on the pictures, and many others get super creative. And this is also down to not just the brand but also to the supply chain that they rely on. Like this dial, I saw this dial in person, and it's frankly incredible the way that it is done. It looks cheesy, but it is also fantastic in the way that it is done. And for a long time it was, to me, unimaginable to see something as elaborate and as accurately crafted as this on a watch, anywhere below a five-figure price tag. And here it is for like a grand or something like that, or probably even
Yeah.
less. So I think it's
Yeah.
it's a supply chain issue as well, or something like that. And it is true that brands, especially in the luxury segment, can rest on their laurels only for so long. I mean, it's very convenient for them that consumer focus has shifted towards brands. People like to wear a brand as opposed to a superior product. But that is only for so long till that lasts. And when that tide shifts, they will have to come out with something that is technically also superior.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's
Good.
not just the mechanics, as you say, it's also the dials and the finishes and the treatments and the materials that also seem to be becoming, I don't know if democratized would be the right word, but seem to be being pushed down, certainly the price bracket. Ariel?
Exclusive goods and services have always been chased by competitors. There's always been a tendency for everyone to enjoy what the very few have. And then once technology catches up, craftsmanship catches up, the very few need to find something new, fancy that not everyone else can have. This is an ongoing game. And that's what we want in the watch industry. We want there to be such popularity around a complication, such as maybe a tourbillon, that it doesn't need to cost so much money to enjoy. And we've seen that just in the time that I've been collecting, where something like the tourbillon was necessarily expensive because it was so uncommonly produced. There was only a few people doing it. They had to do them by hand. And now, not too much longer later, you can have a full on Swiss made tourbillon for just a few $1,000 that when I started would have just not been available. And the stuff that was made in China would have been highly unreliable, whereas the Chinese tourbillons in a lot of ways are totally fine. They're not necessarily as nicely made or as accurate, but they perform pretty well. And so why we don't have few $100 minute repeaters? Well, we do in the sense they're digital things. It just means it's a matter of time. So this is to be expected, and that's why people pay the expensive watch brands the big bucks. Now, I know that the mainstream is never going to have an appetite for, perpetual calendar, minute repeater, chronograph, equation to time, blah, 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 because it's just not practical to have any type of, volume there. But with that said, the ultra collectors still love it. They love it when brands put research and development into coming out with new things. And the measure isn't necessarily how useful or how well it performs, but does it look cool? Is it pretty? Does it have audacity, as they say? So there's still really a market for this. So I think brands need to continue to make these products. Some of the brands that we like the most still do that. I think Patek Philippe, for example, we give that company a lot of a lot of difficult words, but at the end of the day, they try to push the envelope. They have their advanced research division. They're doing stuff. And as you mentioned, it's not just in complications, but finishes and materials. Ceramic had a time where it was really expensive, then it got super cheap. We're starting to see that a little bit more with sapphire crystal cases, where there's a bunch of
Hmm.
companies trying to do it for just a few thousand. When Richard Mille first did it, it was over $1 million.
Mhm.
So this is to be expected and celebrated, and it hopefully motivates the high end to keep doing new stuff, or else as we've been talking about, yeah, it does get boring and stale because they won't push themselves.
I would like a microband to do an equation of time. Yes, please and thank you. I does like at what point do the higher end watch brands that make these complications their bread and butter either need to start worrying or we'll start seeing their execution of these complications and dial styles be rejected at the prices that are being asked for? Like, at what point does I would really love a GMT watch? At what point does a £1,500 GMT watch become a more acceptable purchase than
Easy.
waiting and buying a £12,500 one?
If the average person does not believe that paying the premium gets you anything extra, then that expensive product loses. Today,
Hmm.
the high end car, even if it like materials wise doesn't seem to cost that much more than the low end car, there's still a very real sense you're getting a lot more. So if you spend that more, you feel I'm getting something that other people can't have. If you feel like you're spending vastly more and you don't feel like you're getting more, eventually people will stop doing that. And I think that's where
Uh-huh.
the bar is.
David Ripley, any sign that we're seeing? I mean, obviously, there's lots of sales and earnings problems in the watch industry just now. Any sign that that's being partially caused by the micro brands upping their game to be so close to production value of the big Swiss boys?
Well, I think it just, it forces the brands to do something in, like Ariel said, give you something extra. If it's not, hey, we offer something like the thing itself, like a complication, a minute repeater, or a perpetual calendar, or a tourbillon, that you can't get at a cheaper price point, it has to come in a different way, such as the design, the level of execution, literally anything else. If you want a fast car, you don't need to pay $1 million. No one buys a Bugatti only because they want to go fast. You can get a very, very, rickety, poorly, finished, if you will, car that is in no way luxurious, but it's very, very fast. And people are happy to pay those prices for the car, because not just because it goes fast or because it does that one thing, but because it collectively is all of these other things executed in a really, really high manner. You can go to the dollar store and get a pair of pants, but why would someone wear a custom tailored suit? Well, it fits better, it feels nicer, it's of a certain style where there somewhat is a price floor to enter, because it is, a nicer garment. I think the watches like a GMT or a Submariner, the Submariner's kind of grandfathered in, but if you just want a stainless steel dive watch with a ceramic bezel, you can get that for like $300 now. It's not going to be a Rolex, so people are really buying it for the name, but it's those watches that I think will have the hardest time unless it comes from a brand like Rolex, where someone's going to look at that micro brand offering at $800 and say, why am I going to pay 5, 6, 7, 8,
Yeah.
9, 10 grand on it? That $50,000 Patek, that $500,000 Grubel 4C, I don't care if it's a time only watch. People are buying Philippe Dufours left and right and paying well above, what the brand itself charges for them. And that's not because you can't get a two-handed time only watch somewhere else. It's because it's executed really, really nicely. Similarly, JLC isn't just making a tourbillon, they're making a hybris mechana artistic gyro tourbillon where, they're hitting on a level of art and execution, and
Uh-huh.
also just tourbillons on tourbillons on tourbillons, tourbillonception, to the point where even if a Chinese company were to do it, it would still be pretty pricey, to the point where someone might want to spend that money on, maybe just a nice chronograph or something like
Yeah.
that.
So is this just another sign that it's the middle that's going to get squeezed? The Zeniths, the Odyseys, those that it's really difficult to distinguish that the name is luxury because it's not got the name recognition of a Rolex or a Patek, but it doesn't seem to be producing that much better watch. So the average man, the average man in the street looks at a let's think of a brand. Let's think of Zenith, something that's zenith shaped in a window, and then see something next to it that looks equally shiny, but it's by a micro brand, and looks at the price difference. The price difference is 4.5 grand or 6 grand or 10 grand, and goes, why? They ask themselves the psychologically, why would I spend that much on a watch? And the answer, because it's a zenith. is no one's answer to that question. Because it's a Rolex is an answer to that question. So how do these brands that are getting squeezed in the middle solve that problem? Doxa, which we'll look at in a moment, seems to have tried to solve it by putting diamonds on their watch. I'm not sure if that's a
I think
solution.
there's an interesting answer to that, and I think that you sort of said it in the subtext. The middle is dependent on a upwardly mobile class. We'll call it the middle class, but it's someone
Uh-huh.
who is moving up, but not at the top, obviously, right? So them spending what we'll think of as like Cartier money makes sense, but Grubel Force money, like that's so out of the realm of possibility, they won't even consider it. So watches now that don't have those customers either have to go one of two directions. They need to go higher end to appeal to those people who don't want to be reminded about how much money they are, but certainly don't want poor people to have the same things they do, or more democratized because in today's world you can build a nice product for less, and you want to try to go with a volume play, and you want to try to be sort of a luxury watch for the working person. And I really see most brands having to sort of determine between one of those two directions, and in a sense that's actually what most brands are doing, is they're not comfortable where they are, they don't understand the middle class or what they're doing, what they're not doing, but they sort of seem to get entry level or super high end. And that's where,
Mhm.
again, a lot of brands are seemingly choosing one of the two sides.
David, any final thoughts on this?
Uh, yeah, I mean it's an interesting situation, but
David looks wistfully out of his window in
uh,
contemplation, first of all. It's just,
yeah,
why
yeah.
did I do this?
I would rather write 1,000 words on this than get into this any deeper, to be honest.
That's fine. Well, we'll wait for the article that goes alongside this. Right,
Yeah.
before we play Hit Miss Maybe, let's have a look at this. As we've mentioned, this is a watch brand that it basically has only one product, and now it's decided the way to improve its station life is to add a load of diamonds to it. The Doxa Sub 200T diamond watches. Ripley, you wrote about this. First impressions as a concept, good idea, bad idea?
Um, I say it in the article, but I think it's a fairly self-aware offering from Doxa. The brand itself, I think they are one of a handful of brands that are kind of really championed as kind of a poster child from the golden era of mechanical dive watches. Um, but let's be real, the entry point to Dox's collection's just shy of $1,000. The models, well, not including some of the really premium ones, are typically priced, couple grand, few grand or so. um just under that if you want one of the ones without a chronometer certified movement. And so they really are kind of a premium product. You're more likely to find one of a Doxa in 2024 inside a jewelry store or like a vintage watch boutique than you are a dive shop. And these watches I think are rather representative of that. And where the brand seems to be headed. As we were just talking about, brands need to make that decision to go either lower or higher. And, if you go higher, you have to really substantiate that with something different. And in this case, it's diamonds. Going lower, it's a race to the bottom. Then you ultimately squeeze yourself out of profit and operation. So higher is what a lot of brands are doing. But rather than just putting an in-house movement in it, or a Kanisi version that is largely the same watch and still says the time and date, Doxa went in the luxurious direction. So you get mother of pearl dials, applied markers, and then diamond set bezels that have other colored gemstones, diamonds, rubies, emeralds, etc. For the colored gemstones, these are based on the sub 200, so the smallest sub cushion cased watch that came out earlier this year. You get a whole bunch of colors and pink, Sea Dream Pink, I believe it's called, which is a new one making its debut on the collection. But they are quite expensive and they are boutique offerings. So you're not going to see these for sale on the website. It is something that Doxa wants to make its in-store retail experience more special with these watches.
I just can't. Okay, so on the basis that I think all of the photos here, yeah. I mean, they've even got a photo which I assume is a man, or is it the same person? No, it's a left hand and a right hand. It's this image here. Hold on, I'll share it for those watching on the video. So they're obviously pitching this as a woman's watch, yeah, and it's boutique only. I just can't imagine getting my wife into a Doxa boutique in the first place. That you'd look at the front door, it'd be full of diving equipment, and they'd be like, "Why are you taking me in here for a watch?" Cartier is next door, and Cartier is the same price because these are about 9 grand. I can get a very nice Cartier for that value. Gentlemen, who do you think you're taking in, or who's taking them selling $9,400 into the Doxa boutique to buy one of these?
I think you just answered it. Honey, they have diamonds. Okay.
All right,
I
okay,
mean,
so it's
that's the
simple as
only
that.
way in. You're right. It at the end of the day, it's like the version for the wife, even though ironically it costs a lot more than the one you're buying for yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of funny how they got you there. I think if you're a Doxa fan and you look at this, there's something sort of grotesque about it. You're like, you took that purest thing I like and you made it into a jewelry item. So I get that. But I don't think that these are objectively bad. I think they're actually kind of cool looking. And I think that's the first question I ask myself when I see something like this. I'm like, does it actually look okay? Like, are there going to be people that look at this and be like, that's pretty cool? Yes. I do think they were about twice as expensive than I guessed they were going to be.
Yeah.
And I've recently had Jan Edox, the CEO of Doxa, on a superlative show that has not aired yet. But we talked about it. I was like, and I kind of pushed him. I was like, Jan, you're making a lot of the same thing. Even the different models look the same. And he's like, I know, but people keep buying them. They like it. That's what they associate. If we change it, they get upset. You've seen that we've done other models and people just yell. So it's kind of weird how they have this formula. And the only thing they can do to not be completely boring is just change the skin. It's like I have the same Barbie doll, but I keep putting different outfits on it. But ultimately, it's still the same toy. That's kind of what Doxa and a lot of brands are doing. It's successful. And as long as the kids keep playing with it, they'll keep making more outfits, right? It works.
Yeah. I mean, David, you're the expert on blinging up watches. Does this float your boat in any way, shape, or form?
I was going to say that there's this very niche market of ironically hilarious tool watches, you know, and customers for them who are like, sure, put diamonds on it. I'll buy that. I think these are cool looking, but are way too expensive. I think for what they are.
Yeah.
Then that is what has turned me off.
I think it's just got
Yeah.
slightly too many diamonds on it for me to wear. I think if
It's
it just had the
impossible.
colored, I think if they didn't have the double row of diamonds on the bezel, but just the sapphire, whatever the emerald, whatever colored jewels they are for the markers, I, I think I'd be like, yeah, I quite fancy that. Or if they just done the variety of mother of pearl dials, because that the Zin mother of pearl dial that they have in the black tegmented steel is an awesome looking watch. And you know, that pink mother of pearl dial, if it was just that, I think I'd be rocking that with my pink shirt and my chinos.
And
Guy,
your bow tie.
welcome, good morning to the show, and a bow tie, of course. Yes, maybe that's it. Maybe to counter all the complaints we've been getting about how tardy we turn up to this show, we should all be wearing jeweled watches next week. Guy, would one of these ever float your boat? Would you buy this for Mrs. Guy, Mrs. D Trash?
What? Mrs. D Trash. I think it's weird because I've come into this room and I've never expected to see a Doxa that looked like that. And I came in when you were saying about the please can I go next door to Cartier and have a look for at something that's half the price and a Cartier. And I think you're right. I just think you're right about that. And then, you know, Ariel's saying you've got to judge it on its own merit. And I kind of agree. And they're vaguely pretty. They are quite pretty, but
Yes, they're good looking watches.
I don't know who would ever spend 10 grand buying one.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be pretty. And I mean, maybe it is your lady free diver who then needs to go to the awards ceremony.
Well, I do quite like the double row of diamonds because what they've done is made a diamond bezel, but you can actually still use it as a timing function, assuming it rotates, which I think is quite nice.
Yeah, it does. It must rotate surely.
Because you've got the double one at 12, so you actually know you could use it to time something.
Yeah. Just about. I'm not sure when you get to a certain depth underwater, does all glass or anything that's that color not just look exactly the same color? Would you still be able to tell that?
I don't know,
a
and I
little
think the pink one looks a
pink
bit
tip-
like it looks like a really nice dainty watch in a cage that's like
Right,
trapped
okay.
inside this big case.
Oh dear. Anyone else got any comments on these before we play a round of hit, miss, maybe? Anybody tempted? No. It's a kind of.
I want
Yeah.
more diamonds, larger
diamonds.
cases, more diamonds,
You see, I think it maybe
more
is the wrong
massive
watch.
gold.
I think maybe they shouldn't have done this on the 200. I understand why they did, because it's their daintiest watch, and they were kind of leaning into that. But I'm not sure that a woman. I'm maybe incredibly judgmental here for you to hit us up in the chat. I'm not sure that a woman that is prepared to wear a doxa and prepared to wear a doxa with diamonds on it wants to wear the dainty doxa. That actually, if they know what a doxa is, you want you want a proper doxa, not a 200T. Don't insult me by putting the diamonds on the little one as if I'm your little lady. I think that's where it gets me. This should have been on the more
Yeah, the
substantial.
300. And there's so much steel to drill into. I remember there was all these watches on the market. They got popular for having diamonds put in them because you physically could. There was so much metal on the case, on the bracelet, that an aftermarket jewelry setter could just go wild, and some of them ended up being horrible. But like your average Doxa has like a huge amount of metal. You could do all kinds of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the rappers can take off their diamond-studded Nautiluses now. Those are no longer cool. And start putting on diamond-studded Doxas. I mean, this is the way to go.
I mean, Doxa is a brand that feels like it would rhyme in a rap song. I think you could rhyme Doxa.
Oh, you
quite
could fit it in all
successful.
kinds of music.
I think you
sure.
could, I think that's a word that can be.
But
made into
sub
a tune.
300T, that's going to be a tough one.
That's going to be your challenge, right? Let's move on and play hit miss. Maybe Guy, welcome to the show. Let's find out. I don't know if David's hanging on. I know he might have a place to be, but I think he's hanging on with us for a bit longer. So we'll go around the room. No, David is away.
Bye
So
bye.
goodbye to David. Ripley, where are you and who are you sporting both on your wrist and in your clothing this week? And everybody wants to know.
Well, we're wearing the Luminox Pacific Diver, the automatic version on the wrist. Got Maurice Lacroix on the head. And because it's chilly, now that we're getting into fall, I am in one of the A Blog to Watch crew neck
Oh.
sweaters.
I didn't even know we made them. There you go.
Yes, lots of products. Go check it out on the website. And then you can get in costume and match us when you
Yeah,
tune
go-
in to watch us live.
It's like sing along a blog to watch. It's like we're wearing. We'll send you like this week. Ariel is supporting his latest hoodie from TK Maxx or whatever it is in the States. I have my favorite white T-shirt from C&A's and British Home Stores for those that are familiar with those brands. Ariel,
I
where
think
are
those
you?
brands have both died, haven't they, Rick? I mean, you should show your
Apparently-
age there.
I was in Sao Paulo not long. So anyone who's in Brazil can confirm for me if C&A's still exist in Brazil, because last time I was there they did. But there we go. Ariel, where are you and what are you wearing?
You can't buy this hoodie, actually. This is
Ariel's LVMH hoodie.
No, eBay actually made this.
Okay.
This is a
Right.
weird watch dial logo that some random graphic designer at eBay put together. And this blend of cotton and synthetic is just, it wears so well.
Yes.
And then this watch is a weird one of a brand that has not really launched yet. It's called Ox. And this is one of the more interesting indie divers I've worn in a while. It's inspired by the case shape of the G-Shock Frogman. And it's just as comfortable, actually, but it's a GMT watch with a bunch of weird colors on it. So you'll see more of that.
Good stuff. Now, Guy, where are you? What are you doing? You've got nothing on. this
I'm
week,
on
have you?
it's a nice day actually in the sunny south coast of the UK. I have a plain black t-shirt on in plain black cotton, and I have the Midnight Sky today.
Cool.
Now available in Black Friday. Check
I
it
was going
out.
to say, is it? I never follow these things. Is it Black Friday this week, or was that last week?
It
Should
is
there
Black
be
Friday.
a,
It will still be.
Tudor Black Bay Black Friday thing? I'm just saying. They have to. Come on.
I
Tudor.
don't know, but there is a D-Trash Black Friday thing that we can talk about as much as you like.
Can you call it Dirty Friday?
I was going to call it Green November at the start, and then
Oh, you're
let them really
trash. So
catch
it's
up.
like celebrate, Dirty Friday by picking up some trash in the form of a watch.
I think
Things
that's
out
yeah.
Friday.
I'm not sure we're big enough that we can change the Black Friday name yet.
You gotta
But,
think.
you know,
You gotta
when-
think big. Think dirty.
Next year we will change it for everyone.
Okay,
Well,
I'm looking forward
think
to it.
big, think dirty, maybe, because we're going to do a bit of a variation on a theme this week. We're going to do hit miss maybe, but our first hit miss maybe, because we're expanding the brand that, just like D-Trash is taking over Black Friday, we're expanding the brand from watches. So our first hit miss maybe, and this is when David is going to regret not being on the show. First hit miss maybe is this: Jaguar. Boss Defense new ad and rebrand online.
gosh.
Ariel, Ripley, I assume you must have been thought this must have hit the news elsewhere in the world rather than just the UK.
Yes,
Yes.
I unfortunately
Oh.
saw
You're familiar
whatever
with
this
this.
is. I feel like they were cooking this up, but they launched it like 2 years too late, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
world's changed.
Yeah, I think probably this has been the favorite meme pastiche of the week. I don't know if anyone's seen the meme where they've AI'd an actual Jaguar attacking the cast of
I
this
saw that.
advert,
Oh
which
gosh.
is hysterical. I will try and find that for the video.
Hasn't every logo of a strong car company involved big thick letters? Why'd they go the opposite route?
And all fashion companies have done the same. They
it's-
they all do the same.
it's
I think
weird.
what's really interesting about this for this podcast is you could just go back a few months, take every conversation about the Bremont rebrand, and then just change the words, and it's exactly the
Listen,
same conversation.
I am sure I said on a previous show, you know what's going to happen? The guy that did Brement's going to end up at Jaguar or
And-
a British car brand doing the same thing because he's now free for looking for a job.
I
So,
don't
yeah.
want those individuals engineering my vehicles. They don't look well qualified for that. I want nerds with pocket protectors and wrenches.
But
think-
as I was saying about Bremont at the time, like, Bremont the year before the rebrand, what they turned over 20 million, lost 14 million, something like that. Jaguar is the same. Like, the brand wasn't working, and I own a Jaguar and drive a Jaguar.
I have owned several, yes.
I bought it because it's the
Bought it
highest
'cause it's a-
appreciating car you can get.
You
Like, I
bought it
got
'cause the point is you bought it because it's a Jag.
No, I bought it because
But-
I paid a third of whatever, 2 years old, I paid a third of whatever somebody else paid new.
Well, now you're going to pay a fifth.
Which is fine. That's still value.
Well,
But,
I think
it wasn't working. The company wasn't working.
yeah, but
You gotta do something.
rebrands happen when people at the company feel like the product is good, but it's not resonating. Like
Uh-huh.
the product was okay, but like no one was like, what your problem is the brand. Amazing products, but no one likes your brand. People like the brand, but gave up on the products because they weren't
Yes.
good enough.
Yeah.
No,
was-
I disagree, honestly, because actually the car, I have an I-Pace, which is their electric car, and I've driven a Tesla, and I would take an I-Pace over a Tesla every day.
That's not a
It's
high bar.
Well, I mean, in an electric car world, it's a bar, surely. They're the big,
I
like,
was- Uh-huh.
if you talk about brand, Tesla's worth more than, isn't it worth more than like the next 4 car companies
Yeah, but
combined?
it's not
but
being
people
valued
bu-
as a
people
car
buy
company.
hype.
It's being
Look-
valued as a tech company.
Yes, that's your point, Ariel, though. People didn't buy the Jaguar hype, so they need some hype to buy. And maybe this is the wrong hype.
I think
but
they did buy the Jag hype, but the car spent 50% of its life at the shop, and they gave up on the Jag hype and said, "I'm just going to go get a Toyota Corolla or something like that."
Well,
like
Yeah.
Not
I
my
was in
experience.
it-
Got to say, mine has been
The newer
reliable.
ones are
I've-
better. Look, that they want to do this is clear. The world isn't big enough for as many of the traditional car makers. And the world of electric only, Nobody has any idea what consumers want, especially since we all think that the cars are going to be driving themselves in a couple of years. And if companies like Jaguar were all about the driving experience and all that, if nobody has an actual driving experience and just a riding experience and a listening experience, and what they're buying is the interior design of the car, then I guess this makes sense. But I think that most comments made it clear nobody has even talked about that. There's just a bunch of silly things to laugh about. They almost made this as a joke. I mean, what is this? Somebody wearing a fashion dress and a yellow painted sledgehammer? I mean, this is just pastiche nonsense.
But this is so Rory Sutherland, who is a brand guru guy, was talking about this yesterday, and his point is the people who are talking about it, like the petrol heads that hate it, would never buy this car anyway. And he said when you get into the realm of electric cars, which is quite interesting, the cheapest electric car has the acceleration of a Lamborghini, has the kind of quietness of a Bentley. Like, though the traditional car brands cannot compete on what they traditionally compete about. Like, they'll all go around the Nürburgring quickly. They'll all be quiet. They'll all be comfortable. They'll all be fast, because all electric cars are. So you need to.
And they'll all have to wait in line for a charge.
Not eventually.
Yeah.
Is that how all these people met each other? Is that the people in the video? Is this just like the meetup for the chart?
Yeah. That's the wasteland. No charging points. All we have is our hopes and dreams to fuel us.
I went to a Jaguar showroom Sunday, and the Jaguar showroom is shared with a Land Rover showroom. And all I can say is
not a Skittles factory.
All I can say is the Land Rover folk are bricking themselves that they're next. I mean, Jaguar has physically stopped making cars. There are no cars on the production line at Jaguar. They've stopped making them. They've just stopped making cars. You can't order anything. There's nothing to order because everything from now on is going to be this electric car. And the main comment from the people in the sales room was, whatever it is, it better be the best thing. It better be it better be a DeLorean-like, or, something that works, hopefully, but that is so game-changing, even if it isolates 99% of the car buying community. If it pleases 1%, 100%, then...
Well, I think that's what they're going to do.
Because it's going to be pretty and mediocre. We know that.
And I think the difference.
I
think the difference between this and the Bremont is that you have to remember that Jaguar is part of the stable of brands, and that the Land Rover in itself has kind of a Discovery brand, has a Defender brand, it has a Range Rover brand, it's got Range Rover Sport, Defender Sport.
Which incidentally is what they're changing to so they're getting rid of the Land Rover brand. And what will be on the cars,
which I think is a mistake.
Which is a mistake. So I've got a Defender sitting out there, but it won't say Land Rover on it. It will just say Defender on it, and Land Rover won't be a thing.
They cover so many, and each Land Rover model was kind of outselling Jaguar models like 4 or 5 to 1. So they're covering so many bases and so much of the audience with those brands that Jaguar does need to be something different.
Yeah.
Well, there's different. This looks like a horror movie rendition of a Fanta soda commercial.
It does. Who doesn't know that Jaguar's got new cars coming in a couple of years when this is forgotten?
We'll be paying attention, sure.
I hope this is exclusively the color palette offered for it. No silver, no black, no white. You get 4 different shades of red, orange, and yellow.
Right. Well,
I think they should keep the fade. Every car fades top to bottom.
Yeah. We'll call it off-worldly magenta.
So before we go, predict the future. Is this going to be a hit, a miss, or a maybe? So predicting the future, not what you think now. Do you think they're going to make this work? Do you think there's some genius behind the scene?
It's going to be a niche. It's going to be a niche hit.
A niche hit. So hit, 1, 2, 3, go. I think the 2 hits, 2 misses. I think
the
there
Brits
is a
like
slim
it.
chance. Yeah, the Brits like it. If they manage to produce something that has the kind of initial Tesla vibes that makes people go,
you mean a rebranded Lotus?
Yeah, okay. It's never. I changed my mind. It's going to be such a big mess.
The coolest. I don't know if you. Rick,
don't
if you
know.
can get it up, the coolest electric car coming, and I'm not really into cars, but I think Hyundai have this like concept car that looks like a Mad Max car from the 80s.
All the
and
concept cars look rad, and then you get the one that they actually make, and you're like, what happened to all of the cool stuff you just showed us 2 years ago?
this one looks awesome.
I don't know if it's. Is it any of these on the screen, guy? I'll show. Do tune into a Blog to Watch Weekly live.
Yeah, is it the N Vision at the
Cool
one.
cars, they're not Jaguars.
that
I
one?
mean,
I
That
mean,
looks
how
like
cool
an
is
old
that?
BMW.
Yeah, it
I
looks
love
like
that.
the 8
Series.
yeah, like an 8 Series BMW that someone like gave some big hips to. What are those things on the side? I like them,
I
but
think
Those
it
are
looks
air
awesome.
intakes because it's going so fast. The
would you
wheels
need that for
even
the
cool down
Cool
do you
to
ba-
need
cool
that for
battery.
it doesn't need to aerate anything because it's electric. We just have huge scoops.
That powers the wind turbine at the back that charges the battery.
Maybe they're getting rid of Land Rover because the cars will soon be flying as well.
Yeah, there's no need to rove the land. We're roving air and space.
Yeah. And they're like, wait a minute, Rover is already a company. Damn it.
You're on mute, Rick. We can't hear you.
I have muted myself. I'm now back because I was coughing. I think we'll move on from our car reviews. Although I think we should revisit hit miss maybe on different things, maybe every so often, and we will go back to watches. So here we go. First up, the Audemars Piguet times. Is it COS or is it KWS? I don't know. COS Royal Oak Concept Tourbillon Companion Watch. Why is it a companion watch? Ariel, tell us a little bit about this.
So, Audemars Piguet, through its Royal Oak Concept Collection, has done a collaboration with the American artist known as KAWS, KAWS, who began as one of the many sort of what they call street artists doing graffiti style art, went into sort of combined pop culture toys, made it big amongst collectors, and now makes $200,000 plus tourbillons. Um, this is not his first sort of rodeo with watches. I think that began with Icopod about a decade ago. And this watch is kind of interesting in a way. It's titanium, basically all titanium, all gray, and it looks like his signature character is stuck inside of it. This character is called Companion or a Companion or the Companion. I'm not sure.
Right.
And his little X, which I guess represents the dead eyes, are the eyes as well as small markers in the screws or actually the bolts along the bezel. This is one of sort of Audemars Piguet's many forays into modern art, trying to say, hey, it's not a watch, it's an exclusive design item that means you're hip. And so I understand it from that perspective. Has a tourbillon, and there's sort of these peripheral hands for the hours and minutes that are the same shape, but or the same size, but sort of slightly different shape. Not very clear which is the hours and the minutes, but doesn't really seem to matter. It's interestingly done for what it is. It's very easy to make fun of. I don't know how creepy it is to have this strange guy looking at you. But what I like about it is that
fun of it.
it seems to be the watch that his name is Brian, made for himself,
Right.
rather than just sort of like some third party doing it. So that he did it, I think for me is the most interesting part of it.
Cool. Right. Well, let's give it a hit, a miss, or a maybe. 1, 2, 3, go. Hit, maybe. I think this is pretty cool, but that's not going to stop me ruining it for everybody. Okay. Now, I admittedly, not everybody that's kicking about is a farmer, but those of you that might be farmers, the face on this watch is to me a little too resemblant of what you see when you're standing behind a bull cow looking up its spine, and I can't unsee that. So yeah, I'm sorry. While the watch is a hit, I really like that it's not. It does, although it's got a lot on it, it doesn't seem too fussy. It doesn't seem to be overdone, but it still looks like a farm animal from behind. Ripley, you gave it a maybe.
Yeah, I gave it a maybe. I think there's a lot of things that are kind of cool about it. It's probably, in my opinion, the most tasteful of these character watches, although its competition being the Black Panther watch and the Spider-Man watch. I feel like that it wasn't hard. It reminds me of the collaboration that Kaz did with Nike on the Air Jordan 4s, which were like all gray with these kind of subtle design elements of his on there. So I think it kind of fits into the universe from that perspective. The thing that ruined it for me, I think it's cool. Like, don't get me wrong. If you were going to give me an AP and I was going to wear it and enjoy it, it was going to be one of these, character concept pieces. This is the one I'd want to have. I think it's pretty unique, and I think the design details are fairly tastefully implemented. But an Instagram account added a couple things to the hands of this, and I just can't get that picture out of my mind. So it's a maybe for me. I mean, if you guys want to hunt around on Instagram, I'm sure you'll find what I'm talking about. But it puts some adult things in its hands, and you can go take it from there. And but I think it's cool. I think for what AP is trying to do of like wearable art, I think this sort of, it does sort of check both boxes, and it does earnestly feel like something that exists in both brands' worlds. So, by far is it not the worst AP we've seen recently.
Ariel, do you think this is a holdover still from Benny, or is this all been done under the new regime?
It's hard to say. I don't know what the production time of things like this are, but I'm guessing this is a holdover because they had to do a lot of new engineering. And anytime new parts need to be made, I just know it takes forever. So I think this is something that the new management probably inherited. I give it a maybe because there's nothing objectively bad about it. Like it's decent looking, it looks nice, it looks comfortable, it's pretty thick, not super easy to read the time, but if you really want to impress the kids, boy, is this the way to do it. Maybe because it's not that thrilling. It's very expensive. For me, some people see certain things. When I see those eyes, I just think of Roadkill. Like every Roadkill cartoon I've ever seen is like this. And I just don't need to think about Roadkill as often as it will make me think about. So we all have weird associations with it. I guess that's part of the point of artists like this. Like you don't have a weird cartoon character with dead eyes and assume that people are going to think about sparkling rainbows all the time. So yeah, it's art on a very expensive watch.
Yes. So I think of one thing, Ripley thinks of another, Ariel's thinking of a third thing. Guy, does this watch make you think of something else too?
I saw someone on Instagram mock it up with a Hublot logo, and it makes me think of a Hublot when I look at it. But I don't know. I quite like the hour and minute hands. I think that's clever.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like that watch anyway. I think it's kind of too bulky, and I don't really like it as a watch, even without this design on it. I don't like the superhero ones, and it's a maybe because there's something quite cool about it, and I quite like it. But I feel it's like a bit like Dad at a disco, if you know what I mean. It's like Ariel said, like all the kids will come up to you and think it's cool, but they won't because it's like an AP, and that's not the AP. Like if it was a G-Shock and he did the same kind of thing and it was like 500 quid, I'd get it and I'd get who it was for. But I just think it's AP isn't a street art brand. Is it? I mean, I don't think it is. And
is this the watch you're wearing?
Well, they do like putting art on the street.
FHB tried really hard to make them a street art brand. Maybe this is our answer to which guard introduced this concept.
Oh, I forgot my favorite part of this watch. So there's a life-size statue of this type of companion that's going at the manufacturer. So you can be the AP fan who owns this watch and travels to Le Brassus and then sees like the big Kaz statue and then feel really, really cool. Like that's like those people that get to do that, that's going to mean a lot to them. They're like, oh, wow, this actually is a big deal at the manufacturer.
I feel like AP customers are the kind of people that would like call the police when someone was graffitiing outside and have it painted over.
That was 20 years ago, sir.
But maybe I'm out of date.
You saw the Jaguar commercial. Those are the clients.
Yeah, exactly.
They are
this is
definitely not AP clients.
I mean, the
That's
new
what I
one
hope
is.
that they're selling
That's
to.
what they
Come
want
on.
to be. Is that? I mean, is that what we're seeing? Jaguar wants not to be selling, not to be associated with, I don't know, Brements. Wants to be associated with AP. People that buy APs also buy Jags. The only thing I'm surprised about in this is there's no loom shot. I would have thought there was the opportunity for some pretty cool loom in this watch, but doesn't appear to be any. There might be some on the hands.
Well, I
There's
don't think
certainly
you
none on the
wouldn't
body.
get enough loom on the hands to be able to tell the time,
Yeah.
would you? You just
So
get a
yeah,
bit of
probably
random
not.
glow at night.
Yeah, a random glow. But there we go. So that is our watch from AP. Let's now keep with the grey thing because when I first saw the shots of this, I thought it was that Omega had only released black and white pictures of this watch, and I was waiting for some color. The new no date Omega Seamaster Diver 300-meter watches, truly the greyest watches for a grey day. Maybe they're the ultimate in a Scottish watch. Who knows? But this is something new from Omega. Yeah, it is a new Omega, but is it a hit? Is it a miss? Or is it a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Hit, maybe. Yeah, despite the fact that looking at these at first, I thought someone's made a mistake in the PR department and only set the black and white versus the photos. When you get to it, it's pretty cool. Love it, love it. I would have a date. I don't have a problem with the date. I don't have a problem with healing escape valve. So, but yeah, like these. Ripley, why do you like these?
It's not an exciting release, but I think it's a hit. I think both of them are good looking watches, and they also make sense. Everyone loved the titanium No Time to Die Seamaster, but in titanium it was quite a bit more expensive than the steel ones, and not everyone loved the kind of aged look of it with the faux tina on the loom and the kind of brownie aluminum dial and bezel. This sort of takes that blueprint of the no date mesh bracelet Seamaster and transposes it into a much more contemporary and affordable offering. It's steel, so it's just got white loom. It's about as monochromatic as you can get, so there's no whiff of the faux aging whatsoever. I'd happily wear either one of these watches. I think people's biggest gripe with the standard Seamaster divers are the bracelets. So now that the mesh bracelet isn't a add-on item that you can buy from Omega separately, but rather it's a factory fitted option. I think that'll get some people who wanted a bracelet Seamaster but didn't want the 90s looking thing. Again, not exciting, but I have a heart, they're not at all egregiously overpriced, and I think they're both good looking watches.
Ariel?
I also vote a hit on these. The funny thing that comes to mind is over the last couple of years, we've been seeing like colorful watch, colorful watch, colorful watch. And I don't know if you remember, but I've said a few times, like, we're going to see a black and white watch and be like, wow, what a thing. And that time is now here. We're starting to see colorless watches and going to be, we're impressed for just how colorless they are. They are nice. I agree that they're not per se exciting, but they're a good value. The watch that they're based upon is still one I like a little bit more, but these are like half the price, and that makes a lot of sense. This is really what Omega does best, which is essentially line extensions. Like they have an accidental hit, and they're like, "Oh, let's make cheaper versions of that more people want to get." So this is a smart business decision for them. I think any of us could find a time to wear these watches. I actually find both of them to be very attractive. The boring gray or boring black, they're actually both good, and they're good because they're versatile. The core shape is really what's exciting, as well as sort of the movement and stuff like that. So I think that you're going for one of Omega's nicer profiles. The Seamaster case, interestingly enough, looks prettier on a strap traditionally because something about the bracelet kind of hid stuff. Now you have a bracelet, which is a bracelet, but doesn't hide the interesting shape of the case. So you have this weird blend of being able to sort of look like it's on a strap, but still be on a bracelet. I think that Omega was wise. And again, this is a larger Swatch Group decision, I think, to have prices be aggressive, not all of them be crazy high end. Omega was really, really going high end for a while. So maybe this is a good sign that we're going to see more stuff like this, or this could be just in sort of an accidental thing that the next watch we're going to see is $20,000. But this is, again, not exciting. I'm not going to sort of like stay up at night, but I can see a lot of people getting this and feeling this is a good blend of style and value.
Yeah, in my airport journeying in the last week, I did try on the Omega X33 and what's their deep sea monster
Ultra
watch,
Deep?
titanium
Deeper
one,
sea.
the ultra deep, the deeper sea. I tried on, I tried on the ultra deep, and I have to say, I think I might be becoming an Omega guy, not a Speedmaster.
The
but
Ultra Deep
I
is
was
cool. I totally thought of you when I wore that one.
It's
like a
it was very
Panerai.
cool. It's like a
It's, like,
Panerai.
it's
It was great.
overpriced. It's big.
It's overpriced, has no purpose really. But the X33 was really cool. If it just had a little bit more water resistance, but I'm just afraid of it only having 30 meters. But
Is that
there we
not
go.
farm resistant enough for you?
Yeah,
Rick,
think
I
the
know it rains a lot in
farm
Scotland.
diver.
It rains a lot, but are you ever that deep underwater at any one point in
You
time?
can't hear your X33's alarm in the in the rain. That's a problem.
Yeah, it's problem. Guy, you were a maybe for this.
I have never liked the Seamaster, to be honest. I
Right,
don't like
okay.
the. I think the bezel doesn't look very nice. I like the vintage Seamaster 300 that came out, the vintage looking one, but I gave it. It's hard to give it a hit because the black one looks like I can't believe that's a new product and hasn't been around for like 10 years.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I quite like the grey one. Reminds me of the old Tag Professional that I had when I was young. But I actually think the Tag Professional is nicer as an all grey watch. I think this I don't disagree with anything like Ariel said. I think they'll sell loads. I think it looks nice. It looks nice, but not like amazing.
Yeah.
Like they're cool. They're a bit meh.
A bit
Ooh,
meh.
buy one.
Well, we'll leave the bit meh at that, and let's see if we can create some disagreement and opinion on this. If you ever wondered what Ripley does with all his clothing when he's finished with it, all that branded goods that he gets sent, once he's worn it out a bit, he sends them to Hublot and hopes that one day Hublot too will make a watch out of his old sweaty running gear. Because Ripley's well done by the way, Ripley. I saw you got a good time in your half marathon or whatever it was you were running in the other day.
I did. Got third. Wasn't feeling well. Still a bit under the weather, but got third. And
There you go.
I've
There you
never
go.
been so
Well,
happy with third. It sounds like I did so well, but I really need to clarify that the first two place guys were so incredibly fast. I did it in an hour 38, and the guy who won it did it in an hour and 10. So the guy who beat me by just one spot between us beat me by 28 minutes. So,
Still
there
an
is that.
achievement.
So no matter what was
Still
so
very
what
good.
you're saying is no matter what you were saying and how fit you were feeling, third was all it was ever going to be.
I could have been feeling 100% and have had carte blanche to take any performance enhancing drugs. I was not going to beat that first place man. It's an awkward podium. There's like two guys who are pretty much racing each other the whole half marathon, and then there's me who's just like happy to be
Wearing
there.
Tudor shorts.
Yeah, happy to be there and was worried about the chafing on my nipples. Like that was.
I think you could say. I think you're like first of the amateurs. That's a claim.
First of the amateurs. There we go. Right, well, let's look at this. This from Hublot, the Novak Djokovic Hublot Big Bang Unico watch made out of tennis balls and Novak's sweaty clothing. Ripley, tell us a little bit about this.
Novak's been Djokovic has been a Hublot ambassador since 2021, I believe. He's obviously had a lot of success since then. Last year, 2023 was a big year for him. He won his 24th Grand Slam title, which gives him the most of anyone ever. Before becoming a Hublot ambassador, he was with Seiko, and that partnership yielded numerous different Novak Djokovic limited or special editions. This is his first one with Hublot. And so what they did was they made an ultra light version of the Big Bang Unico chronograph. And then here's kind of where it gets more interesting. So it's super light. The case has been kind of skeletonized out to help it achieve that. It's largely made of aluminum structural components, but then the outer part, that blue camo looking thing, is a carbon composite, which is made using a sustainable resin. And shirts and rackets that he wore and used during the 2023 season that have been shredded down and mixed with some like glass fibers to make this, hard carbon composite. So it's very lightweight, that uses stuff that he used. Now, because it's supposed to be lightweight, the whole watch, even with one of its straps, the most lightweight option, the whole watch weighs less than a tennis ball. So the movement structural components are aluminum as well, rather than plated brass. And then rather than using sapphire, it uses Gorilla Glass, which is like what we know from smartwatch screens. It's quite a bit thinner, or lighter rather, even though it's not quite as scratch resistant. So it's obviously going to be a limited edition because he didn't wear that many shirts or rackets throughout the last season. I think it was like 25 shirts, 32 rackets went into this batch. So it's a 100-piece limited edition. It is over $50,000, but not only is it a novel material, but actually the watch itself is tangibly different than your average Big Bang chronograph.
Yeah. So is it a hit, a miss, or maybe 1, 2, 3, go? Hit. Oh, 4 hits. Nico, whoever Nico is not gonna like us giving an Hublot a hit. I really like this. I'm not sure I'd pay $50,000 for it, but I think the story holds together. I think the story and the design and the guy, I think it holds together. Ripley, why would you give it a hit?
Well, okay, so to start with, Hublot can't do anything too outlandish, garish, or flagrant, in my opinion. This is the brand where them and Jacob and Co. can do kind of whatever they want, and they're not going to be contradicting themselves or making something so out of character and untasteful. It becomes fun at a certain point. But I think this does a good job of sort of playing into the world, giving you something that makes it feel like it's a little bit more special than just a LE colorway or something like that. It's functionally something that's supposed to be lightweight that could fit into this environment. It uses stuff that the man himself actually wore and played with. I think it does a good, as in a vacuum, I think it's a cool watch. But then when you take a step back and look at it in terms of what it's trying to accomplish and how it plays into this partnership, I also think it does a lot well. And to me, this feels exponentially more special than some random co-signed watch produced with some ambassador that has their signature on the case back and some color dial variation or something like that. I think this does a lot right as far as what a collaboration of this nature should be. And while I'm not going to be paying $50,000 for it, I think it's cool to see Hublot do its materials thing and kind of take a little bite out of the Richard Mille pie as far as the ultralight sports watches.
Ariel?
The most interesting part of this watch for me was the technical story about trying to make it lightweight, because even though there is no real world need for a watch like this to be that lightweight, at least there was sort of a cogent story behind why is the case cut up? Why did they use this material that's sort of not a traditional watch case material and stuff like that? And connecting it with this celebrity of sports makes sense because, again, as you mentioned, that's worked in the past for a lot of watches, Richard Mille, some other Hublots. I think the part I could have actually left out was about the seemingly trivial, let's put his rackets and shirts and stuff in there as part of the material. I think it actually cheapens the story because I don't see it in like F1 or, racing yachts or something like that. They're like, oh, let's just take some sentimental crap and throw it in there. Like that's not how performance is achieved. So I feel like that confuses it. I understand that that's like the icing on the cake, and you're in a retail environment. Like, do you know that part of his stuff is in it? They're like, really? And maybe that like helps sell it. But like, I felt like that just cheapened it for me because it's not what I want from this sort of tool experience. And I also like that we have no idea if this case will return. Like, will it come in different colors? Uh, like, is it a one-shot thing? Like, we all actually don't know if we'll ever see this type of thing again, which is sort of the fun thing when it comes to this Hublot stuff. I
Yeah.
do think it's kind of amusing that we have completely turned a blind eye to how often brands are using plastic and charging huge amounts of money. And look, I get it. It's not like off the shelf, plastic. They have to do special blends and things like that, but they're using every poetic way they can to not say it's plastic, right? Composite just means a blend of other stuff. Okay, I get that. What stuff? It's plastic. And my concern is that plastic can scratch. The better ones don't yellow over time, meaning they don't discolor. Um, but Hublot has been doing this for a while. This is not new. For ever since Beaver was on board, like the middle section of a lot of the big banes was essentially plastic. They'd call it resin or something like that. It's actually very practical material. It bends a little bit. It can age well. If it's not subject to, it's sort of in the middle, so it's not going to be scratched. So I don't want people to become too accustomed to spending too much for plastic. Let's call it what it is. I also would probably want a sapphire crystal instead of the Gorilla Glass. Be like, I don't care if it's a bit heavier. So again, it's an interesting kind of concept watch. I like it for those reasons. But we all have a lot of questions like, how many more Hublot watches in the future are going to get this type of treatment?
Yeah. Guy?
So the more that I look at it, the more I like it. Actually, I 100% disagree with Ariel about. I think it's great to make a watch using trash, which I'm using Djokovic's trash is
It does support
is
your
a
brand,
great
guy.
thing.
That's true. It's very.
It does. I
It's
mean,
very
it's a
supportive.
great
It's a
idea.
$50,000 D trash.
Yeah.
It's a $50,000 D trash. Exactly what
You're
it
not
is.
reaching high enough, Guy. You need to value your trash more.
Well, it's
The guy, I
don't have
can send you
Djokovic's
some of my
trash.
old
That's the
clothes.
problem.
Do you want to repurpose?
just-
mulch it up
Will
with
that
some
work as
epoxy
well as
resin.
Djokovic?
Everyone get a layer off now. Come on, let's send it off to Guy.
Start going
It's
through
like-
the trash at celebrities' houses, and you can have some of the same stories.
Exactly. Well, yeah, but I think that's really good. And also, I think if you think about, diamonds are valuable because they're rare in theory. Like, there is a rarity to using one of Djokovic's old rackets or his old clothes, and that's what you've got.
Technically,
You
you're
just
right.
had a. So I like that. I really like that element of it. There's better
Would it
watches
not
made
have
with
been-
trash out there, but
but-
I like
Would it
that.
not have been more valuable to make the watch just out of plastic and send you a framed, signed
No,
Djokovic
but that's
You-
that's
you
so. I just
also-
think that's the
Tracker.
boring way to do it, and this is way more inventive.
Included
And
with the watch and 4
Uh-huh.
straps are a wristband and a polo shirt signed by Jokovic. So you do also get additional signed clothing items, and along with his
Okay.
actual sweaty
More
implements.
trash that is
How are
getting
they
valued.
Yes.
making any money?
But and also I think can everyone just appreciate? I love the tennis ball colored button is amazing, and they've changed the screw. I think they've changed the screws to make
Yeah,
them like
they
tennis
did.
bally, and well done them for doing that because I think that's like one of those details they didn't have to do that makes it look really cool. I just quite like it. I can't believe I'm saying this.
It's neat
But-
looking.
It's quite a good price for what it is. Like.
Okay, Guy. Again, we take
I
points.
wouldn't buy one, but like I'd buy it over. I'd spend 50 grand on this over the AP at 200. Like I
And
think
you
this
can
has a
still
proper.
plug your
You'd get more
USB
wearing time out of
into
the
bottom
Hublot
of
for
it.
sure.
One thing to appreciate is since the brand isn't using its standard 8-shaped screws, presumably they had to fabricate another tool with that wave line thing and the domed profile to open the watch up and make it. So there's also that.
Somebody else makes screws that shape though, do they not? They
With
just
the
borrowed
little
their
S
tools.
line with the domed head.
There's
Yeah,
probably
there's- I
something like
can't-
that out there.
There is another brand that does this for all their screws. That like, it's not FP Jure. There is a brand somewhere that I have seen this screw shape before.
There's been
Somewhere.
similar
Maybe it's
stuff.
somewhere else in LVH
There's been
group.
similar stuff. It's true.
Somebody else does this. Yeah, so there you go. So who'd have thought it? Who'd have thunk it? Hublot gets a clean sweep of the voting. So that's it for our main show this week. If you care to hang on or go and look at the extra time that we have on the Blog to Watch Weekly Live channel or the Blog to Watch YouTube channel later in the week, then you will get to see a little about a watch. Well, maybe it's not a watch. Maybe it's something else artistic that we might play hit miss maybe on next week. But other than that, it's goodbye from all of us on this week's show just now. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Okay, so yeah, for next week, we are obviously going to have to play Hit Miss Maybe on this. And our question will be, which watch brand could you sellotape to a wall and sell for $6.5 million? So that will be next week's challenge. Is
I don't
pick a
understand.
watch
What is
brand.
this?
This is a banana.
Art.
This is art. This sold for $6.5 million, I think it was, at Sotheby's in New York
to,
this week.
What do you mean sold? What was sold?
It was
It's-
all-
$6.5 million needed to change hands in a traceable manner through a reputable institution.
Allegedly,
So-
Rippy. You have to say allegedly.
Sorry,
Allegedly, right.
I've oversold it. It was $5.2 million. Basically, a banana comedian or a comedian of a banana, I'm not sure, an Italian, it could only be an Italian, sellotaped or gaffer taped this banana that he just bought outside merely 30 minutes earlier, sellotaped it to the wall. Other forms of tape are available, and then sold it at auction for $5.2 million. Interestingly, it's the banana that's the artwork, not the gaffer tape. If you read the details of this, the idea is that you replace. I don't know. I don't
the
get
tape
it.
is the frame.
Yeah, the tape is like the frame. The tape is not the important bit. It's the banana that's the important bit. You could use any kind of tape.
I'm gonna
So-
point out an irony. Media loves two stories. One type of story is some company came out with something crazy expensive, and then the other story is some dumb person spent his money on something expensive, and it's like not a lot in the middle. I don't know why they keep telling stories about the dumb people spending the money on expensive things. This just encourages bad behavior.
Well, and on that note, we'll come back and we'll hit miss maybe this next week, and we'll ask the question: what watch could you gaffer tape to a
We're
wall?
gonna have to have
and
a whole
attempt to
art
sell?
critic show now.
I think. Listen, I'm just waiting for you to, Ariel. Next week, your challenge, okay? Hit miss maybe next week. You need to bring a chair to the show. We want to do a hit miss maybe on your favorite chair. So you need to send me in advance the chair that you would like to play hit miss maybe on.
I bought something, a little nostalgic item that
Uh-huh.
relates to this topic. This is it's a pin, but it's
Uh-huh.
remember the show The Critic with John Lovitz?
Being in the UK, no.
Okay, well he said he was a movie critic in the show, and his little slogan was "It stinks," and so I guess I'm a critic, and so I thought that was funny to have there. So that's relevant.
I don't mind introducing a new layer, hit miss maybe, or it stinks. So for next week,
No,
for
I'm
next week
not
only-
saying that.
Could you
Well,
imagine if watch
'Cause some
brands
watch
took a
do
similar
smell.
approach? You show up to Watches and Wonders. Before you get inside the booth, you notice it is Jean-Claude Beaver duct taped to the wall inside. And you just go, oh, wow, I guess we're going to be seeing something today.
Oh, no, this is for Guy. What brand was it that?
The duct tape holds the
Sellotape.
booth together, Rip.
No. There was an advert in the 80s where they glued a guy to a big board, hung him from
Oh,
a
it was
helicopter.
Loctite.
Loctite.
Loctite
advert.
super glue glued a load of stuff like
Loctite
cars to billboard, like real
super
cars to a
glue.
billboard, so it stuck out.
Advert. Well, let's finish if I can find this.
They're amazing
video.
adverts.
That
and
sounds
they
smart, actually.
Yeah, I'll find it for next week. But they flew.
It was one like it was the company my first ever job was at a company that did that. Like we had we did this installation ad for, I think it was Norton Antivirus, and it was a big perspex box with a computer in it, and it had like alligators, like real life alligators in the middle of Trafalgar Square, and the line was like, "There's an easier way to protect your computer."
Okay, very good.
It's another,
Very
but like
good.
this one, it's like one that got
Solvite. You can see that this is a banana.
Solvite, not Loctite.
Solvite. Yeah, you can see the quality of the taking of this from the Betamax tape.
I'd
that
spend
somebody clearly
$6
found it
million on that art.
let's Loctite
A
Ariel to a
man
board.
stuck to a wall, floating in air.
There you
Show
go.
me some Andy Warhol Solvite thing. That's better than the banana thing. Won't it decompose? Then it would really stink.
There we go. Well, that's our show for this week. Thank you all very much for joining us. Remember to get in touch. Podcast at ablogtowatch.com or WhatsApp, as we'll have the exclusive reveal next week of our theme tune for the WhatsApp. You'll get to hear that next week. Sorry, Guy doesn't know this because he wasn't on the show earlier. We have an official jingle has been made for us. So
With bagpipes.
there's no bagpipes involved, but it is an incredibly catchy tune, really annoyingly so. So it'll upset everybody. But there we go. That's it from us this week. Thank you for tuning in. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
And that should be us out.
Okay, guys.